India has often spoken of strategic autonomy, having friends and allies even if they are warring parties, be it Russia, Ukraine, or for that matter, Israel and Iran. But having investments in two countries that are in conflict and at war with each other, does that really help India and Indian interests? Take, for example, the Iran Israel war. It no longer is a regional conflict. It has deep consequences for India, from surging oil prices and stranded Basmati shipments to market crashes and digital blackouts. How could a regional conflict become India's next strategic and economic nightmare? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. On June 13th, 2025, Israel unleashed its deadliest aerial assault on Iran in history. Iran retaliated within 48 hours with attacks on Tel Aviv and Haifa, turning them into war zones, and the cycle has continued ever since. With missiles raining over West Asia, shockwaves are being felt in Indian ports, oil terminals, financial centers. Is India prepared for this full-scale war between Iran and Israel that could have consequences for India?
The current conflict between Israel and Iran is an important development which may not be very very good for us, because what it has done is in the last 1 week or so, the price of crude oil has gone up to almost $74 per barrel. It was in the low 60s. We were hoping that it would go below 60 because OPEC countries were looking to increase production for the third time in July. So this obviously raises important risks for India in the crude oil price increase if it sustains. But remember, in 2022, when the Russia-Ukraine war started, crude oil price went above $100 per barrel. And yet the Indian economy was able to sustain a 7% growth rate. That crude oil price increase lasted only about 3 to 4 months before it started coming down. So a lot depends on how much the crude oil price rises further and how long that period of increase lasts. Otherwise, it may not be consequential, although it is an important thing to watch out for.
India imports over 80% of its crude oil, and much of it travels through the Strait of Hormuz, now shadowed by Iranian warships and drones. If this narrow choke point, bordered by Iran, closes or even partially clogs, India's oil tankers won't sail freely. The result? Skyrocketing prices, fuel insecurity, and national anxiety. During the 2019 Gulf tanker crisis, even without full-scale war, insurance premiums for oil shipments soared by 20% and oil prices spiked by 5%. In the current scenario, Brent crude has already jumped 9%, and Indian giants like BPCL, HPCL, and Indian Oil have taken stock hits of 3.5%. Ripple effects of this war could lead to transportation costs rise, hurting logistics and pushing inflation. Manufacturing slows down, raising input prices across sectors. The rupee weakens, making imports more expensive and pushing RBI into firefighting mode. India's fiscal deficit widens, making recovery from the post-COVID slump harder. Every extra dollar on oil is a blow to India's economy. Can India weather a prolonged disruption in its energy lifeline? India's Basmati is not just a culinary treasure. It is a major export lifeline, especially to Iran. In the year 2024-25 alone, India exported about 855,000 metric tons of Basmati to Iran, worth rupees 6,734 crores or over. But this war is turning Basmati into a stranded asset. Iranian buyers are delaying payments, some taking over 180 days. To survive, Indian exporters are dumping rice into new markets at lower prices. That means lost profits, distressed margins, and an entire industry under pressure. Meanwhile, India-Israel trade worth $10.1 billion, centered on defense, agri-tech, and AI, is now under security scrutiny. Indian companies with exposure to Iran's fertilizer and urea markets are facing contract instability. The International North-South Transport Corridor, or INSTC, linking India to Central Asia via Iran, is now caught in the crossfire. Ports, roads, rail, all vulnerable. War isn't just fought with missiles, it's fought in invoices, cargo holds, and customs slips. Can India's trade corridors survive a blast zone? India's $85 million investment in Chabahar Port of Iran was supposed to unlock Central Asia for India bypassing Pakistan. It was the cornerstone of India's westward push. But that cornerstone now is cracking because of the war. Iranian ports are in the line of fire. Drone strikes, cyber attacks, and naval threats are turning Chabahar from an economic node into a geopolitical gamble. Worse, escalating conflict could void Chabahar's US sanctions exemption, making it a financial and diplomatic liability. India's dilemma? Abandon Chabahar and lose access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Stick with it and risk sanctions, instability, and sunk costs. Caught between Tehran and Tel Aviv, India's Act West policy is being stress-tested in real time. Can India safeguard its strategic outposts without burning diplomatic bridges? Few know that 95% of India's international data traffic flows through undersea cables, mostly routed via West Asia or the Middle East, especially the Red Sea, Strait of Hormuz, and Gulf of Oman. These cables are vulnerable. In 2024, three major cables, EIG, AAE-1, and CECOM, were disrupted in the Red Sea, reportedly by Houthi actors aligned with Iran. The result? Delayed transactions, slowed cloud services, and bandwidth chaos. India's risk. Mumbai, Chennai, Kochi, all cable landing zones at high risk. A single cable break can cut up to 70% bandwidth in a region. Cloud exports, IT services, even banking operations are at stake. With $245 billion of digital economy riding on these cables, the cost of war isn't just in barrels, it's in bytes. Will India be digitally strangled in someone else's war? India is no longer just an observer in West Asia. It is a stakeholder, and that comes with risks. In fact, India is one of the largest international buyers of defense systems from Israel, including Heron Mark II drones and Harib loitering mission. The Drishti-10 Starliner, co-produced with Elbit Systems, is flying over Indian skies today. Tonbo Managing, an Indian firm, even supplies electro-optics for Israeli munitions. But what happens if Israeli factories supplying India are hit by Iranian missiles? India's use of Israeli drones draws international criticism. US pressure grows on India to side more explicitly with Tel Aviv. Being close to Israel is a strategic asset, but in wartime it can become a diplomatic burden. Can India maintain its non-aligned posture while arming itself with Tel Aviv's tech? The India-Israel Innovation Corridor, from AI to cybersecurity to agriculture, is more than just talk. The I4F Innovation Fund has launched over 34 joint projects, and Hyderabad's Drishti Accelerator is bringing Israeli startups to Indian soil. But war changes everything. Conflict fallout, R&D delays and funding freeze as focus shifts to national security. Tech talent stuck due to travel bans and disrupted mobility. Cybersecurity attacks could spread from West Asia to Indian systems. Even quantum and space collaboration could slow down if Tel Aviv is on high alert. Innovation thrives in peace. Will the war dim India's tech ambitions before they take off? India's Adani Group spent $1.2 billion to acquire Haifa Port, a jewel in Israel's crown and a critical node in the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or the IMEC. But with Iranian missiles targeting Haifa city, India's global ambitions may be moored in a war zone.
Look, IMEC is a project that is projected, that India has begun to implement the eastern part of it by signing a series of agreements with the UAE. And it remains to be seen what will happen after the region stabilizes in terms of trying to implement the western part. So we are discussing this, sometimes in closed doors, sometimes in semi-official dialogues that are happening in different encounters here in Delhi and other places. I think that there are a lot of stakeholders that are very interested in that project. Only yesterday, I had a visit of a major logistic companies. I won't mention the name, but a major international logistic company that actually came to show interest in this project, and they want to be part of it. So the prospects of IMEC are there. They haven't changed, and I think the entire world is looking forward to see how this is going to end in order to re-engage in activities that need some geopolitical. Well, first of all, we are only targeting, targets that are connected to the regime capabilities, and we are not targeting civilians. We've done a lot of effort, including appointing a Farsi-speaking officer, calling the civilian population in Iran to evacuate from areas that are dangerous. This can take time, because we have to continue to degrade their capabilities. We believe that we've been able to hit about 120 launchers out of the 360 that they have. So given the fact that they already fired about 400 ballistic missiles and even a double number of drones, they still have stockpile, and we are determined to try to completely degrade it. The question is, at what point the Iranians are going to agree to come to the table to accept the terms that are being demanded by the international community.
Haifa is more than a port. It's a symbol of India's strategic reach, its calculated risk-taking in contested geographies. Haifa was India's way into Europe. Can it still be a lifeline for India, or is it going to be a liability in a city under siege? The India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC, was a bold counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. It would connect India to Europe via the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel, bypassing the Suez and Red Sea choke points. But now, the Israeli link is under missile attack. Security uncertainty is forcing delays. Regional cooperation is freezing. Supply chains are snapping. Without IMEC, India's dream of supply chain resilience takes a hit. Reliance on China-led routes returns. India's geo-economic centrality weakens. A corridor built on peace can't survive in war. Can India salvage its grandest connectivity project from the ruins of regional instability? This war isn't just Israel versus Iran. It's India versus risk across every sector of national power. Oil, rice, cables, drones, ports, startups, and data centers. Every thread in India's growth story passes through the fire arc of West Asia. This isn't about sympathy or ideology. It's about national interest. India wanted to be a bridge between East and West, but in 2025, it may first need to be a firewall, resisting the heat of a war it didn't start but can't afford to ignore. Because in this war, neutrality is not immunity. India is no longer just a silent observer in West Asia or the Middle East. It is a major stakeholder, and that comes with risks. Thank you for watching Statecraft.